Hello and welcome to Insights. I am Elizabeth Omori. Today we will deal on key issues of concern. We will begin with national security, defense of our sovereign state, its citizens, economy and institutions, regarded as a duty of government. National security is understood to include also non-military dimensions such as the security from terrorism, minimization of crime, economic security and cybersecurity. Governments rely on a range of measures including political, economic and military power, as well as diplomacy to safeguard the security of our nation. Today we will look at efforts at mitigating national security threats through non-kinetic approaches. Drug abuse and trafficking, another issue before us. It is the illegal production, distribution and possession of controlled substances such as narcotics, stimulants and hallucinogens. It includes a complex network of individuals and organizations working together to manufacture, transport and sell drugs for profit. How do we reduce the prevalence and make our society healthier? An expert will talk to us about the dangers of this transborder crime. Now the rains are here and medical experts say floods can possibly increase the transmission of water and vector-borne diseases. It is important to know the risks and protect our water sources. We'll have a bit of education on the impact of floods to our health and environment. So stay with us as we begin.
I'm fascinated with the discourse on national monuments and assets and how much is being done to preserve and
look into the language issue. We have turned English to become like a pride value in our own cultural values.
National cash transfer is not a COVID-19.
Invasion 1897 was a deliberate tactic.
You know, many of these people coming to the urban areas now.
These and applications, there are terms and conditions that
of course it is the union of two people, a man and a woman coming together.
My name is Nnamdi Odipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori. Non-kinetic approach, according to the Nigerian military, is the use of psychological, diplomatic, informational and civil military cooperation as part of instruments of national power to pursue national interests. Effective synergies between the military and civil actors foster national interest through the application of non-lethal force. How has this approach been helpful in curbing crimes? Abdusalam Ladigbolu, President, Read and Earn Federation for UNESCO, is our guest on the segment. Thank you so much for joining us on Insights.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much. Now, we need you to talk to us. How has this approach been helpful and how does it work?
Okay, first of all, we all know that mass unemployment can actually lead to societal civil unrest. So I want to talk briefly about something that happened recently in Nigeria,
okay,
which is, I think, the gallant Nigerian police force, ambushed these kidnappers in Lagos State. Now, we look at two things in that area. There's a kinetic approach, and another thing is that they have quality intelligence, to actually apprehend these guys during that period. Now, but during that time, we can also look forward and think that, okay, fine, during the time of crossfire, we may have civilian casualty. So, but that is kinetic approach. But how can we stop this, even from getting to that area? That's the area we're looking at. How can we mitigate national security threats to non-kinetic approach? Now, recently, the Nigerian police force, come up with something very fantastic with the UNESCO ref during the International Youth Day. Said enhancing Nigerian youth value for national security intelligence, because there is no way you want to tackle the security issue. You look at it in two ways. Without information, even the military will tell you that it's difficult to fight a war. So after that, there's what we look at post-summit of that event. What are we looking at? What do we intend to do? What are the causes? What are the factors that are contributing to security threats to our nation? First of all, unemployment is it's a big factor that we should look at. And then number two, we should also consider quality information. You understand? We should enhance the strategic information sharing between the security agencies and the civilians, because it is not we and them, it is us. When the citizens realize this, they will know that, oh, to make this country work in terms of having a peaceful society is the responsibility of everybody. Now, looking at the area of non-kinetic approach properly, the youth, the promising youth in the country are moving to other parts of the world, leaving human capital deficit in the country. If you have that kind of situation, that means your economy, you don't have a broader based economy to create employment. So how do you tackle the unemployment? Number one, you need to think of letting the civilians, the citizen, know that, like you said, psychology, we need to work more on the intellectual capacity of our people. Because, recently I watched one interview, and then the parent was talking about the crisis in Northeast, that some of the people are actually know those are committing the crimes, but they are afraid, or out of sympathy, no one to give necessary quality information to the security agencies.
Okay, I'm sorry I have to comment there. Yeah. How critical is this approach in the renewed drive to actually further secure the nation?
Number one, the citizens have to realize that having a peaceful society is the responsibility of everybody. It's not we and the security agencies. Do you understand? Crimes, like the IG once said, he said, the crime committed, in a particular country, they are citizens of those countries. In some cases, you might have an external forces, but the people, for example, if you want to, maybe like where I come from, they said, the rat in the house that will tell the rat outside what is going on in the house. So in that area, what can we first do? Let the citizen actually realize that to have a peaceful society is with them first. Is when it gets out of hand, that's when we can now start thinking of kinetic approach. That's why I was making reference to what happened in Lagos State when the Nigerian police laid ambush on the kidnappers. If there's no information, they won't have done anything. The information can generally come from maybe those that they are planning to kidnap, and then one of them here is, okay, let's pass the information. So two areas, citizens should realize that they are relevant in making this work. Number two, the security agencies themselves must enhance information sharing. Am I safe if I give this information out? That is another thing, confident. Then number two, how do we need to build this, the capacity of the citizen to even be able to identify potential threats? You understand? Because if I don't know how to identify a potential any threat, I won't give any information. I may see it clearly that when I see color red, this is what it means. If I see color blue, this is what it means. But they should try and actually work with the citizen and let them be able to, even though it's at the surface level, let us be able to identify potential threat and then create an enabling environment for them to put that aside. Because non-kinetic approach is not just about psychology, education, morals. If I have all those things, I must be able to identify threats and know how to sensitize the people around me. So I think that's one of the best ways to go about it.
Yeah. Okay, quite interesting, but I want to believe there are challenges. So what challenges are associated with non-kinetic approaches?
People that are going to share the information have to be rest assured that their information, they are safe after, letting out the information. That's one. Number two, clean at the early stage. That is, myself, let me use myself for example. Okay, we are trying to mitigate the national security threat to non-kinetic approach. What should I do? Number one, start from the family. The father, the mother, giving their child good morals. If it's religious wise, maybe in their church or mosques, that's another thing. But aside that, if I have decided that no, I'm not going to listen to them, I want to do whatever I want to do. They have another point, which is their school, peers. You understand? Their teachers, the environment they are growing. These are the things that can actually affect my decision, whether positive or negative to the society. And then another thing we should also work on is another challenge I'm looking at. It's point for us to start realizing that we are Nigerians. Nobody's coming to help us. We need to help ourselves. So when we start having this in mind that I'm a Nigerian and I want to work for Nigeria, do you understand? When I see anything that is wrong, I'm ready to contribute my own positive quota to make that work. Without that, I think we are just joking.
Security is everybody's business, like we usually say. But really, what should be the citizens' contributions under the non-kinetic approach?
The citizen must, first of all, have the passion for development for our nation.
Okay.
That's one. If you have the passion for development, if you look at the new national anthem, let me say, okay, is it renewed new national anthem? If you look at the lyrics, it's very inspiring to me. I'm talking for myself, from the area that let us, oh God of creation, oh God of all creation, kind of that particular area, and the area of we shouldn't hand over a stained flag to, do you understand, to our
children.
To our children. That area speaks a lot of things. And then the area of tribes and tongue may differ, but in brotherhood we stand. If I can imbibe that, okay, fine, this is what I am. This is what I need to do as a citizen. My language is different from this social person. This person, because from this person, I need to put myself in order. And say, okay, fine. In any area that is going to affect my country, I need to put myself right. What I'm trying to say is that we are very sensitive in this nation in terms of tribes and religion. So we need some people to come, either the religious leader or we need to maybe reevaluate our education system. We need a proper intellectual capacity for our citizens, mostly from the school, to let us know that everything, the diversity of Nigeria is the glory of Nigeria. So the citizens have to realize that their contribution is for their own upcoming generation. We need to start thinking towards enhancing our intergenerational connectivity by imbibing good attitude, morals, church, mosque, school, home, friends. I think with that, the contribution will go a long way.
Aside communal engagements, getting people together, advocacy, telling people the importance of not involving in crime, terrorism, or other forms of criminality, is this approach truly working?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
And then, one particular, before we even talk about non-kinetic approach, we have what we call kinetic approach. Both will work side by side simultaneously. We do have adequate. And then again, when we talk about non-kinetic approach, what are we even looking at? Security threat is not about having people with arms to come and attack. It goes beyond that. You understand? We can have, like now, social media is something very, very good. But at the same time, the disadvantage of that social media also is there. So it depends on how we want to approach. The factors affecting a particular community we don't need a non-kinetic approach in the area. You may need a proper kinetic approach. So it depends on the people in charge of it. So it's just a contribution to complement the effort of the security agency. So what I'm trying to say is that community A, no matter your non-kinetic approach, it may not work, but it's just to glaze and support what is on ground in the society. So it's working, but we cannot rely on it alone.
I once asked this question: which is more effective, kinetic or non-kinetic approach?
Well, it depends on the situation.
Okay.
Depend on the situation, and then It all depends on the situation.
It's a tough call.
It depends on the situation. You know, that's why we have correctional center, if I'm right. Going there, some come back and then still go back to there. So it all depends on the particular situation. I'm not a security expert, but I believe that they know what to do. The little contribution we can do, let's start doing it.
Let's start doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what role does interagency collaboration play in all of these?
Let me say there's a crisis happening in this particular place. What particular information do I need to pick and share with the security agency? That is where the security agency, the Nigerian police, Nigerian army, need to train or build the capacity of Nigerian citizens, even if at the scratch, so that they can identify potential threats. Because when we talk about security, what comes to people's mind is guns, all these
weapons, explosives.
Explosive, and it's not about, you can have psychological security threats, you understand? You can have food crisis, you can, security goes beyond that. So in that area, if I can identify potential threats and I know how to share it, you know, it's go a long way. And what is intelligence? Intelligence is a quality information to aid a particular mission. If I need to, maybe I'm going for an examination and then maybe somewhere just, okay, I need to reach chapter 2 of a particular textbook. I have a quality information to work with, going for the examination. Do you understand? Because if you relate with the security agencies, when they are saying some certain things, what you don't even think or find kind of relevant is very important to them. So I think both security agencies and the Nigerian citizens need to work together. They need to build their capacities for them to identify potential threat. Then they will know what intelligence is all about.
Okay, I want to ask you, whose responsibility is it to drive this approach?
Security is everybody's business. You understand? So there's civil society organization, family members, church, mosques, individuals. We are all, it's our duty to make the country work to have a peaceful society. It's everybody's duty to have a peaceful society and then drive the non-kinetic approach. I think that's why you see even the Nigerian police having public relation officers, NSCDC, you get, so that to have this, you know, interaction, you know, civilian and
military,
you know,
civil military relations
interaction. So I think it's not just the Nigerian police, although they are closer to us, and the civil defense, the army too are involved. But for now, I think they are trying, but they are not there yet.
I think if the relationship is stronger, we'll have a better and more friendly society to stay in. Well, Abdusalam Ladibulu, President Ref UNESCO, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for showing up on Insight today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm fascinated with the discourse on national monuments and assets and how much is being done to preserve and
Look into the language issue. We have turned English to become like a pride value in our own cultural values.
It's not cash transfer. It's not a COVID-19.
Invasion 1897 was a deliberate tactic.
You know, many of these people coming to the urban areas now.
These and applications, there are terms and conditions that
of course it is the union of two people, a man and a woman coming together.
My name is Namdi Odipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori. For months now, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, has been intercepting drug consignments meant for export and local distribution. Cocaine, cannabis, methamphetamine, codeine, among others, have been recovered from syndicates. Despite enforcement, these traffickers come up with several means to ship and distribute these substances. Can the prevalence be reduced? How do we win the war against drug trafficking and abuse? My guest, Chuks Akamudu, President, Center for Ethical Rebirth among Nigerian youths, will educate us. Mr. Kamudu, thank you so much for joining us on Insights.
I'm pleased to be here.
Thank you.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. You have been championing the cause on reduction. Looks like these are global menace daily has a new twist to moving from one place to the other, with failed calculated attempts anyway. Well, despite intense advocacy by the NDLEA, but these drug merchants still devise other means. What is the missing link in clamping down on them?
Well, the missing link, then I think if you're talking about the missing link, then we should be talking about interagency collaboration.
Okay.
I think NDLEA has been doing that with the Nigerian police first, but from the look of things, given the current trend, the greater synergy needs to be forged, not just between the NDLEA and the police force, but amongst the NDLEA and other security agencies. Drug trafficking is a very lucrative business, and it is because it's this lucrative that those who are involved in it are getting a lot more ingenious by the day. So it means that our security agencies should double their efforts. NDLEA should be a lot more proactive. They should not always wait to apprehend culprits. They should take measures that would even prevent, that would deter traffickers from engaging in it at all. For them to do that, there is need for NDLEA on the one side to work in harmony with other security agencies, notably the customs, of course the police, the Nigerian Armed Forces, the Navy, the Army, and of course the Air Force. Beyond that, there is also need for the NDLEA, which is the major enforcement agency of government, to liaise with the judiciary authorities, because there is need for the judiciary to begin to prioritize matters that have to do with illicit substances. We may not have to go the whole hog of setting up special courts to try offenders, but if the judiciary is sensitized enough to begin to prioritize cases that have to do with trafficking of illicit substances, and we ensure that there is expedited hearing and conviction of offenders, that will go a long way in deterring traffickers.
You know, you talked about justice. Virtually every week, the NDLEA personnel intercept and arrest traffickers. But the issue is, are the laws against this illegal act not biting enough?
The drug business is so lucrative that people would rather give us the shot and say, well, if I'm caught and I'll have to do time in prison, why not? And at least I would have made so much money if I wasn't caught at all. I think the laws are there. I think we should begin to think of more stringent measures. We should begin to think of. I really don't mind capital punishment for offenders, because these people, like these traffickers, they are murderers. They are the ones that feed the terrorists you have all over the country. today you just said that Mr. President has directed the Honorable Minister of State for Defense and the service chiefs to relocate to Sokoto State for them to go and quell the rising spirit of insecurity in Sokoto and the entire northwest geopolitical zone and all of that. And you begin to ask why. Of course, drugs, consumption of these illicit substances fuel the security in the land across board. It's really taking a toll on our security architecture and the worth of the life of the average Nigerian.
You know, the buying and selling as well as the usage are common amongst the youths. Some families are fully into the trade and they use them as well. How do we crack such? Because it means that the society is at risk and it's more dangerous when the family is involved.
Well, that takes us to the demand side, front of the war against drug abuse. Because if you're talking about the supply side, of course, you're talking about enforcement, which NDLEA is doing its very best to ensure that the nation is rid of trafficking in illicit substances. But now you're talking about a situation whereby we have mother, father, and children all involved in all of that. Then it goes beyond enforcement. It goes beyond enforcement. It now begins to tell the moral crisis that the nation has found itself in. It goes to tell about the decline in family values that we find ourselves as a society. It goes to show that institutions of the society, such as the church, such as schools, such as the mosque, that they are not doing enough, or they should up their game to ensure that the right values are inculcated in youths, young people, children, and of course their parents also. It means also government agencies such as National Orientation, the National Orientation Agency should also be a lot more alive to their responsibilities to ensure that they complement the effort of the NDLEA, because you need both the demand side and the supply side to actually win the war against drug abuse and illicit trafficking.
Okay. You know, there are several threats involved in this. Some lose their lives, some are maimed, some are financially broke. You know, many lose their lives, property, family relationships to this menace. But really, in terms of advocacy, what has your center been doing to enlighten Nigerian youths on the dangers involved?
We've been in collaboration with both NDLEA and UNODC. Apart from that, we've also been in collaboration with state governments such as Lagos, Bauchi, and Nasarawa State to see how we can reach out to as many young people as possible. As last 2 years, we embarked on school-to-school visit in collaboration with NDLEA. We went around secondary schools in the FCT, sensitizing students and pupils on the need to stay away from drug abuse, because we found there was need to actually catch them young so that they don't go into it at all, because if they're exposed to the potential hazards in trying it at all, they will have every reason to not to engage in it, because it's when you start flirting with drug abuse, first of all, you say, okay, let me experiment. From experimenting, you find yourself becoming a casual consumer. From becoming a casual consumer, you now drift to becoming a habitual user. And there is a thin line between a habitual user and someone who is really dependent on it. So if you slide from habitual usage, the next thing, you become dependent. And when you become dependent, of course, it's addiction. And addiction, the journey out from addiction is not something
Very
anybody
difficult.
would want to embark on. So, for those of them who are still young in their impressionable stage and all of that, we urge them not to try at all, because drug abuse only comes to steal. It's like cancer; it only comes to take. Only few people live to go through the process of rehabilitation and return as normal. It is difficult. Even when they come, even when they beat the addiction and go through rehabilitation, they can hardly ever be the same again. So it is in the interest of young people to stay away completely, and that is what we are focused at. So when we say Center for Ethical Rebirth among Nigerian youth, so try telling them that prevention is better. Flee, because that's in your best interest.
You know, aside advocacy, I want to believe we all have roles to play in reducing the prevalence in society, the family, government, you know, society. While some get rich from the sales, many are harmed. How do we prevent this? How do we reduce the prevalence, even if we can't stop it?
Well, I think for now, we need to alter the narrative that seems to drop sensitization, advocacy efforts on the laps of NDLEA. We need to realize that given the enormity of this challenge on our hands, that everybody has suddenly become a critical stakeholder in the way against drug abuse and illicit trafficking. What that then means is that every well-meaning Nigeria, because of course the statistics are there that quite a majority of Nigerians have aversion for drug abuse and illicit trafficking. A vast majority of Nigerians don't do drugs, but we seem to be complicit. Why? Because we keep mute. Why go mute when you can lend a voice and save a life? That's why it does appear that this thing is very prevalent. It's because the good ones amongst us, we are not speaking out. We are not speaking out. We need to come out. It's not enough that you're not doing it and you also think that your kids are not doing it. No, it's not enough. Your neighbor is doing it. Of course, the fact that your neighbor is doing it puts you at risk. It puts your own children at risk. So those who aren't doing it, since we constitute a majority, we should rise in unison. We should come up with an affirmative action. There must be a consensus amongst us that we should not allow the tiny minority to be this tyrannical. Because, I mean, there is tyranny of the drug users and drug traffickers as we speak. It looks like we are at their mercy. It's not supposed to be so. The reason is because we are acquiescing to this sordid state of affairs. We're not supposed to acquiesce to it. We should speak up. We should step forward and rise to be counted. We should say no to drug abuse. At all times, we should ensure that our professional bodies, religious organizations, trade unions, and all of that, let all of us do the right thing. If you look at the content we have at times in the social media space, even in mainstream media, you find that some of the content actually promote drug usage and all of that. It's not supposed to be so. And for that reason, please, I'm using this opportunity to call out National Film and Video Censors Board. Please, National Film and Video Censors Board, you need to rise and do more in this regard, because all of these music videos, content are supposed to have gone through you before they are put out for public consumption, especially for those of them that find themselves in the mainstream media. Please do more in that area so that our children who are in this their impressionable stage will not get away with the wrong impression that this is the right way to go. Because as we speak, it looks like a contract culture that is struggling so hard, fiercely fighting to overthrow our culture, because our culture as a people, as Africans, as Nigerians, frown upon things like that. Then we should ensure that we protect our own culture and do not allow this contract culture to vacate our culture in the interest of our children and particularly the future of this nation.
The future of this nation. You know, it's a trans-border crime, and then if we can reduce the movement of these drugs, it will go a long way. But with porous borders, what do we do?
Trans-border crime, yes. If our people recognize the fact that this is an enemy that poses a major threat to our collective survival as a society, then in our respective homes, in our individual capacities, we would be doing things that, of course, will repel this attack by the enemy. This thing is cancerous. The people have to co-own this fight. It's not an NDLA fight. It's not a law enforcement agency fight. Those porous borders you're talking about, of course, we have border communities. People dwell there. If those that dwell there understand that they suddenly have become stakeholders in this fight against drug abuse, they will be the one that will be supplying NDLA, Nigerian police, customs, intelligence that they will use to curtail and contain this scourge called drug trafficking. So we need the people's buy-in, we need the people to go on, we need the people to pick up the gauntlet and see it as a fight for their own survival, because it is in our individual enlightened interest for us to win this war. Otherwise, all of us will be imperiled.
So it's a collective fight?
Yes, it's a collective effort. Anything short of a collective effort will not yield the desired results.
Chuks Akamogo, President, Center for Ethical Rebirth Among Nigerian Youths. I want to thank you so much for joining us on Insight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much.
I'm fascinated with the discourse on national monuments and assets and how much is being done to preserve and
look into the language issue. We have turned English to become like a pride value in our own cultural values.
It's not cash transfer. It's not a COVID-19.
Invasion 1897 was a deliberate
You know, many of these people coming to the urban areas now.
And applications, there are terms and conditions that
of course it is the union of two people, a man and a woman coming together.
My name is Nnamdi Odipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori. Flooding can damage property with secondary impacts. It could also increase the spread of waterborne diseases and vector-borne diseases. Flooding can also lead to long-term displacement of residents. Floods often cause damages to homes and businesses. On this segment, we will analyze environmental and health implications of flooding. And this is because most communities have been submerged and many displaced. The spawning grounds for fish and other wildlife habitats can become polluted or completely destroyed due to flooding. My guest, Dr. Solomon Nuhu, former Provost, College of Health Technology, Ida, Kogi State, will speak to us on the health implications of these two, our health and environment. Dr. Solomon, thank you so much for joining us on Insights.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. Viewers, thank you.
Well, we'll be talking about the health implication of this to our health. You know, oftentimes when an area is flooded, people think about their property, what to do, what to carry, but the health implications are neglected. So, tell us, what are the health impacts?
Yes, in the cycle of disease causation, ignorance plays a very key role. It is because of the ignorance of the people that is why they neglect the health implications of flooding. But let me say it here this day categorically, unequivocally, that flooding causes a lot of health challenges to the people. In the area of communicable disease transmission, you know, there are so many diseases that are water-related and that are waterborne. We have diseases like cholera, typhoid fever, amoebiasis, poliomyelitis, and other waterborne and water-related infections that are actually that can become an epidemic during flooding or after flooding. And again, there are some other diseases again that are water-related insect vector infections like malaria fever, yellow fever, filariasis. These are actually diseases that are transmitted as a result of the availability of water plentifully, which will favor the proliferation of mosquitoes that will eventually bite people to transmit the infection. So the flooding, if it is not properly managed by professionals and people through proper enlightenment and campaign, there is a possibility that people will expose themselves to the risk of transmission of these diseases. Take, for example, when there is flooding, this flood water passes through vast land area. And these land areas where these waters are flooded might be a refuse dump site. It might be a place where they do the burial of the dead, the cemetery or burial ground. And again, even flood premises where there is a septic tank, where there is pit latrine. And so when these places are flooded, there is the tendency and the possibility that the content of these graves, dead bodies, are exhumed into the water. Again, even the content of the water carriage system, septic tank, pit latrine, the decomposing feces are exhumed into the water, and this water pass through long distances. If people fetch such water to drink, there is the possibility of an outbreak or occurrence of these common communicable diseases that I've mentioned, like cholera, like dysentery, diarrhea, poliomyelitis, and other waterborne infections. So flooding can actually lead to a very terrible outbreak of common communicable diseases like I've mentioned.
Common communicable disease.
Yes.
But really, why do we often neglect this aspect when we know the dangers involved?
Many are ignorant of this. They don't know some of these things we have mentioned. So their major focus and attention is some of the valuable things that they are losing through the flood. Some of them, they are crops that are yet growing on the farm are submerged. Some livestock, goats, sheep, and other animals that they are rearing may be carried by the flood. And some, their property, houses, beds, some completely submerged. And they are thinking of the losses that they have, incurred through the flooding. And little attention now is paid to the dangers associated with the flood that will eventually lead to an outbreak of communicable diseases. So I think it is a good thing the NTA is doing and other relevant communication agencies by enlightening the members of the public so that they will now know that, they should pay less attention to the things they have lost and pay particular attention to the health challenges that they may have as a result of flooding.
Interesting. Still talking about the impact, what are the health risks of urban flooding? Now we've talked about rural areas, but when it comes to the city, what are the risks involved health-wise? Because this is where actually industrialization dwells.
Yeah, there are a lot of health risks. Take, for example, we know that water plays a very important role in the transmission of currents. Now, if an area, particularly in the urban areas, if a particular city metropolis is flooded, there is going to be infrastructure damage caused to electric poles and other communication cables. So if those things are not being immediately remedied and managed, it can lead to electrocution. Now again, in the cities too, we have a lot of industries. These industries indiscriminately discard the dangerous waste from industrial processes. And some of the waste that are being discarded by the industries are highly carcinogenic. They have the ability to cause cancer, lead to cancer formation, some of which are chemicals. So even mere touching the skins, when you walk through and wade through such water, there is a possibility that there may be some dermatitis, there may be some formations that may take place on the skin. So there is a great danger because a lot of rich waste products are being discarded in cities, and these are carried by the flood. And so human beings having contact with this water that is already containing some dangerous chemicals and waste now can cause problems. Some of the wastes are highly radioactive.
Yes.
Yeah, such that the waste from industries, if those are being carried by this flood water, and human beings come in contact with it, there is a possibility that tomorrow, even pregnant women that are having contact with this water that has been highly polluted by this industrial waste, it can lead to some neurological problems. The women can give birth to children that are particularly deformed in some organs of the body. So the impact is so much. And that is why people should be properly informed, people should be sensitized, people should be enlightened to know the danger that is associated with coming in contact with flooded water, and even much more drinking such contaminated water.
It's actually more dangerous like we think.
Yeah.
Now, let's understand the long-term impacts of flooding to our mental health. How does this affect us mentally?
Yes. You see, a human being value property. There are persons that make use of millions of naira in carrying out massive extensive farm operations, particularly these days that they make use of chemicals, mechanized farm operations. People farm on several hectares of land, and then unexpectedly, maybe because of the impact of climate change that is bringing up flood in places where ordinarily there shouldn't have been flood. Now the whole of these hectares of farmland is completely submerged, all the crops lost. Now the thirst for survival comes up. What this person would have sold and be able to get money from there to take care of him or himself or the family is no more. Even what's to eat is no more. So that can lead to emotional distress. It can lead to emotional instability. And so it can even lead to neurosis and some measures of levels of mental illnesses coming off from distresses that they are getting as a result of heavy economic loss arising from flooding. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to know. Well, all right. Can the plague of flood be resolved with several predictions that we have from NIMET?
Yes. That is, if people give heed to the warning signs that is coming from NIMET. You know, before floods come up, these various hydrological agencies predict and give the information to the members of the public. But unfortunately, members of the public neglect these warnings and still remain in flood-prone areas until they are being submerged, until their properties are being destroyed. So what I want to stress here is that people should try to give heed to the warning signs, information that is coming up from NIMET and other related hydrological agencies, so that the damage that will be caused as a result of flooding can be greatly minimized.
Now, to reduce the health impact of flooding in rural areas, I'm dwelling on rural areas because most of these places still need attention.
Yeah.
Now, what should be the role of the government in this aspect when we consider the health implications? What efforts should they make to make these places more livable for the people?
Thank you. When we want to look at the aspect of government, there is a lot of responsibility that government has to offer to her people. Now, when we're talking about flooding, you know, there are so many things that occasion flooding. You know, many a times floods take place as a result of damage to infrastructures, dams. Now, if the dams are properly fortified, if the dams are constructed where they are expected to be constructed, the level at which the flooding will go will be greatly minimized. So government should provide some basic infrastructures that will really help in controlling flooding. That is one. Then there are things we call embankment. Some of the coastal areas that is prone to flooding, government can carry out the construction of embankments so that it will control water spillage to the communities. Again, the professionals should be properly mobilized to carry out advocacy, sensitization, public health campaign, and health education on the members of the community so that they can know the danger that is associated with flooding. Most of the things we're talking about, people now expose themselves to it because of ignorance. But if they are properly informed, then that will go a long way to make them to come up, develop a very positive behavioral change that will prevent and avert this particular trend of negative events that will happen to them as a result of flooding. And again, government should also provide some basic things like water treatment agent, disinfectants. During flooding like this, Federal Ministry of Health, Federal Ministry of Water Resources, Federal Ministry of Environment should collaborate by providing basic things that the people can use in treating their water before consumption. We have something like water guards. Water guards can be provided by the government agencies and federal ministries that are water related and then distribute freely to people. And then sensitize them on the need of adding these water treatment disinfectants to their water before consumption. And again, at a time like this, government can provide a displacement site to the people. And in such places, they can provide mobile toilets so that people will not still be defecating into the body of water and then be causing more outbreak.
More havoc.
Yeah.
All right, quickly, how can we keep safe this period with the rains?
Yes. At a time like this, the possibility of outbreak of waterborne related diseases or waterborne diseases and water-related diseases is at its peak. Yes. Yeah, it is at its peak. Now, at this point in time, people should avoid fetching water from water bodies, surface waters, and then be consumed without treatment. And again, at a time like this, people should constantly listen to warning signs that is coming from NIMET and other related hydrological agencies that predict on flooding. The onus is on them to listen and to give heed.
Interesting.
And ensuring again that the water we consume at this time should be properly treated before consumption, because a lot of waste are entering to bodies of water. Yeah.
Dr. Nuhu Solomon, I want to thank you so much for educating us. Thank you for taking your time out to enlighten us. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much, viewers.
I'm fascinated with the discourse on national monuments and assets and how much is being done to preserve and
Look into the language issue. We have turned English to become like a pride value in our own cultural values.
National cash transfer is not a COVID-19.
Invasion 1897 was a deliberate
many of these people coming to the urban areas now.
These and applications, there are terms and conditions that
of course it is the union of two people, a man and a woman coming together.
My name is Nnamdi Odipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori. And that's Insight today. Thank you so much for your time. I'm Elizabeth Omori. Stay safe, keep warm this weather, and be a brother's keeper. Remember to always shun evil, always. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.